The Uyghurs and some other minorities are Muslim, they're Turkic, and they live in this area called Xinjiang, which is supposedly an autonomous region of China. Starting in the early 2000s, there started to be a push from the central government to have more and more Han Chinese immigrate into Xinjiang, which created some tensions over time.
For China, Xinjiang is a vulnerability. In 2008, the Central Military Commission that decides all grand strategy for China concluded that the greatest vulnerabilities China faced in its national security were Xinjiang, Tibet, and Taiwan.
There were some large-scale protests that really, I think, started to make the central government worried about stability and so forth in this area.
And the great fear of China under the Chinese Communist Party is being broken into pieces again. So separatism in Xinjiang hits on a core insecurity in China that predates even 9/11 and the awakening to the Islamic terrorist threat around the world.
There were some claims of involvement in terrorism, some of which may be accurate, but obviously it's a very small proportion of the population. And then you see in 2013 a real crackdown, the very beginning of this whole re-education effort to put people in detention centers and re-educate them by convincing them to abandon their religion and culture. That escalated severely in 2017. And so now we have around 1 million Uyghurs, at least, in detention facilities who have never been accused of any crime. When the Uyghurs are there, the conditions seem to vary. Some places there have definitely been credible allegations of torture and severe physical abuse. Certainly in all cases, there's a lot of psychological coercion. So that's the whole re-education effort, where people are forced to recite things in Chinese all day. They're Muslim. They might be forced to eat pork, which is against their religion. When detainees are able to escape or talk to their families, there have been a number of allegations that people were forced to work in factories.
The repression in Xinjiang is the most egregious example of how, in the era of Xi Jinping, China is cracking down on human rights and civil liberties.
The government's line is that they're preventing terrorism, but clearly some of the reasons that people are being put there do not indicate that they're terrorists. In Xinjiang, people are being monitored all the time. All aspects of their lives, even inside their homes, are being tracked and being used to determine whether they should be put into one of these facilities.
Xinjiang is ground zero for a new model of repression based on artificial intelligence and surveillance technology.
There are cameras everywhere. Those cameras often have facial recognition capacities or gait recognition capacities, so they can tell who it is. It's an unprecedented system, right, in terms of gathering so much data, using new machine learning techniques, and pulling it all together to target people at scale.
The surveillance state techniques are going to be sold to or copied by other authoritarian states in Asia, the Middle East, or Europe.
That's the fear. China selling that technology to other governments to target and track political opponents.
We're in a larger contest right now with authoritarian states like China or Russia about the nature of international relations and societies. Will they be open with accountability, with a free press, with the representative forms of government, or will they be closed and repressive, which is the direction clearly China and Russia and other states are going?
There have been requests from Congress for sanctions against some of the officials involved in these severe abuses in Xinjiang, and also some of the Chinese companies that are the most involved in developing this technology. Those calls for sanctions, which have been going on for months, have not been answered by the administration. I think it's a real lost opportunity.
If Beijing thinks it can get away with this level of repression, the lesson Beijing will draw is they can get away with much worse things in other places, maybe in Hong Kong, maybe in Taiwan, by finding the seams in international society and exploiting them. No country in the world can tie those seams together like the United States. If we're not speaking out clearly on what's happening in Xinjiang from the administration, we invite China to seek new ways to divide the international community on other cases where they may crack down on human rights and democracy. So this is a teachable moment for China. Can they get away with this? And if the U.S. is not willing to organize the international community on this, including the Islamic world, China will take away some very bad lessons about what they can get away with.